for question B, P and Q are 5, 7, and the slope m is -1/2. So y equals m bracket x minus p plus q. Distributive property to multiply each term by the number in front of the bracket. So y equals -1/2 x. 5 is 5 over 1, so we multiply. -1 times -5 is a positive 5. 2 times 1 is 2. So -1/2 x plus 5 over 2. The 5 over 2 comes from multiplying -1/2 by -5 over 1. Top times the top, bottom times the bottom. And then 7 is 7 over 1, but we want to be able to add it to 5 halves. So we're going to get a common denominator here. So y equals -1/2 x plus 19 over 2. If you didn't get this right, there's a couple of questions in the textbook with some fractions in there that you can work on, part of your practice. Question D, the x-intercept is 3. What are the coordinates of that point? If the x is 3? Yep.
Wouldn't it be 3 and -5? Because
This initial point has 3 first. The 3 is right. What's the y coordinate at the x-intercept? 0, right? Whenever it crosses the x-axis, the y coordinate is 0. And vice versa, when it crosses the y-axis, the x coordinate is 0. So those are your two coordinates of the x and the y intercepts. You use those 2 points to figure out your slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And -5 over -3 is just 5/3. That's the slope you should have calculated with those two intercepts. Did you need to use the PQ formula? What do you think? No, right? Why do you not need to use that formula? What are we given? What does the PQ formula allow you to solve for? Yep.
We can use it for when we have like one point slope, like
You have a different point, right? But you're trying to get the y-intercept. In the end, you end up with your y-intercept. We already have ours, so we don't really need to use that. The equation is just substituting those values in. 5 over 3 is my slope, and -5 is my y-intercept. So that's the final equation of that line. Okay? Do some practice. Finding the equation of a line is a very, very important part of this unit. It finds its way into every single question. Right? If you're finding the equation of a median, it's still the same thing as this. If you're finding the shortest distance, you need to find equations of lines. So if you're a little bit kind of rocky with this, you need to make sure you go back and study it, review it, and ask if you've got questions. Okay? When you check your answers, or if you want to know what the answer should be for this question here, I'm not going to do it with you today, but it's 2/3 x plus 8 over 3. So when you go home, one of the questions you're going to do for homework is question C. That's the answer you should have. All right, line segment has endpoints C and D. Graph CD and determine the equation of the right bisector. So can you guys remind me what a right bisector is? We talk about a right bisector or a perpendicular bisector. What line is that? Yep, Xavier?
it crosses to the midpoint at a right angle.
Perfect. Goes through the midpoint at a right angle. So first we're going to draw it, and then we'll figure out its equation, and hopefully the equation we get will match the picture that we drew on the graph. Okay, so I'll just jot down the definition in here. Right bisector is a line that passes through the midpoint and is perpendicular. Okay, at a right angle, it passes through the midpoint. So we're going to plot the points C and D. C is 3, 5. So over 3, up 5. Label them with their coordinates on the grid. D is -5, 1. Left 5 and up 1. And we're going to draw this line segment. please, for all of your questions in your review and on your test. The right bisector will go through the midpoint. Leah? Mm-hmm. Right bisector goes through the midpoint. So the middle of these, if I'm going to guess where the middle is, I'm going to say it's approximately here. I'm going to label it with a big capital M for midpoint, and I'm going to show on my diagram that this side is equal to this side. That's how you draw a midpoint on a graph. Then I'm going to sketch a line that's perpendicular to the original one and goes through the midpoint. How do I draw my perpendicular line? Yep.
You just start at like the top and then just go straight through the midpoint.
You start somewhere up and it goes through. How do you know you're drawing one that's perpendicular as opposed to one that has an angle that's not a 90-degree angle? Why did I just take this paper? Freya? You line it up, right? So take a piece of paper, line it up with the bottom line, with your line segment, and use that to help you to sketch your right bisector. Okay, it should follow a 90-degree angle. It's going all the way across the grid. What am I going to anticipate about this equation? Yep. What does the slope look like? Positive, negative? Slope of this line goes down to the right, so it's going to have a negative slope. And approximately the y-intercept could be between 1 and 2. Looks like it crosses somewhere here in between. So those are my answers I'm going to expect. So if I'm finding the right bisector, I'm going to use the midpoint and the negative reciprocal slope. You guys need to know these. There's a pink piece of paper that gave you a summary of each of the types. Right bisector, median, and altitude. Study those. Also in this unit there's examples of finding the equation and the length of each in the notes and in the videos posted online. So make sure you go over them, take another look. I'm going to use the midpoint of DC, so let's figure that out first. Midpoint of DC or CD, same thing. Midpoint formula has me adding the two values and dividing by 2 to find the average x and the average y. So my x values are -5 and 3, the first number in each bracket, and my y values are 1 and 5, the second number in each bracket. And I'm just going to calculate it. So -2/2 and 6/2. This says that my midpoint is -1, 3. Does the blue dot that I drew on my graph look like that point? -1, 3, yeah, looks perfect. So check every step. Okay, don't just assume that you've got the right answer. Go through and look at the graph and say, does it make sense with my picture? Does this look like it's correct? Once I have the midpoint, I have to figure out the slope, because I want to use the slope's negative reciprocal. So the original line segment was DC or CD. Let's find the slope of those two. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. These are the y values. These are the x values. I'm subtracting them in the formula. 4/8 reduces to 1/2. I have to ask myself at this stage, before I do extra work that I don't need to do, does the slope of line segment DC look like it goes up 1/2? Right? This slope means it goes up 1 and over 2. So does it look like that on the graph? Up 1/2. Looks good to me. You check at every single stage. You don't want to be erasing 5 or 6 steps in your exam. Okay, so make sure you use that picture to help you every single step of the way. Make sure you graph the line properly on that picture so you can use it. If this is the original slope, my perpendicular line would have a negative reciprocal slope. What is the negative reciprocal of 1/2? Yep. -2/1, right? -2 or -2/1, same thing. That's the one I'm going to use in my equation. I'm going to use the midpoint and the negative reciprocal slope. So let's find the equation. Y equals m bracket x. It's -1, so in here I'm going to write +1 plus the 3. Distributive property. simplify. So that's the equation of the line. Now you have to check and see if it makes sense every single time. I'm going to get really, really irritating saying it over and over again, but I promise you it will save you from losing marks on your exam and on your ISP. So this line, describe it to me on a graph. What should that equation look like? Yeah, Carol?
It crosses the y-intercept at 1.
Yep, check your y-intercept of 1, and
And it goes down, over 1, down 2.
down 2 and over 1. So is the y-intercept approximately 1? Close enough? Does it go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1? Looks good. Okay, so check those on your picture. Okay, so the two other types of lines we looked at were medians and altitude. So let's take a look at the median. And again, all these notes will be posted online. We're doing 1 day of quick review for each topic. I want to make sure that you have all of the basics in there. Oh, I missed a question. Show that the right bisector passes through the point 6, negative 11. Show, prove, check, verify. What are we doing? Prove, check, verify. What do all those words mean you have to do? Yeah? Yes, sub something in. We're going to sub in our point. Specifically, how are we going to sub it in? What kind of process are we going to do? Jill?
Like, left side equals the right side.
Yeah, left side, right side check, right? All these mean do a left side, right side check. There is one in your notes from yesterday, so I'm not going to do this one with you. Okay, the right format is included in the example we did. We did a linear systems question where we checked that the POI from solving graphically was correct. Very first page of the review packet.